She was just a delivery girl riding through the quiet streets of Pine Harbor until one unexpected stop changed everything. A millionaire's mansion, a golden frame on the wall, and a photograph that froze her in place, because staring back at her was the face of her own mother from decades ago. What secrets had been hidden all these years? And why was her family's past hanging in the home of a stranger? If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and tell us where you are watching from. If this story moved you, we'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below and let us know what you think. Now, let's jump into the story. Lily Ramirez was 24 years old and knew every curve, hill, and shortcut in Pine Harbor. Riding her bicycle through the narrow lanes of the fishing quarter and the wide roads of the cliffside estates, she carried packages, letters, and sometimes secrets. She wasn't just a courier. She was the quiet witness to the comings and goings of her town. Each delivery meant money. Every dollar mattered. Her father, Ernesto, was in the hospital, and the bills arrived like tides, never stopping, always rising. Her mother, Marisol, stayed by his side, while Lily worked double shifts, her legs aching from the miles she covered each day. The morning had been ordinary until she read the next address on her delivery list. The name was Adrian Hart. The location was high on the cliffs, where the houses were more like castles. She had never delivered there before. The locals spoke of Adrian as a man who kept to himself, a businessman with a fortune that stretched beyond the town's borders. The ride up to the cliffs was long. The air grew cooler, the sound of the ocean louder. At the end of a winding road, she stopped in front of a tall iron gate. It opened slowly after she pressed the buzzer. She pedaled into a driveway lined with manicured hedges and white roses. Adrian Hart himself opened the door. He was in his late 50s, with sharp features and eyes that seemed to look past you. His voice was deep but polite. "Come in," he said, explaining he needed to sign for the package. Lily stepped inside, careful not to scuff the polished marble floor with her worn sneakers. The house was silent, filled with the soft scent of old wood and something floral. She followed him into a large room with a fireplace. That's when she saw it. Above the mantel, framed in gold, was a black and white photograph. It showed a man she didn't recognize standing beside a young woman whose face stopped her breath. It was her mother. There was no mistaking it. Marisol's dark hair fell over her shoulder, the same way it did in the few old photos Lily had at home. Her eyes in the picture held that same mix of kindness and quiet strength. Lily's hands trembled. Her voice caught in her throat, but she managed to whisper, "That's my mom." Adrian froze, his hand, halfway to the pen on the desk, stilled completely. Slowly, he turned to look at her, his brow tightening. "What did you say?" "My mom." "That's Marisol Ramirez." His eyes searched hers, as if trying to read an entire story from her face. "Marisol Ramirez," he repeated, his tone heavy with something between disbelief and recognition. Lily felt the room grow colder. The ticking of a clock somewhere down the hall became louder in her ears. She stepped closer to the photograph. "Where did you get this?" Adrian didn't answer right away. Instead, he studied her with a strange intensity, his lips pressed into a thin line. Then he asked, "What's your name?" "Lily Ramirez." For a moment, it seemed like the air had been pulled from the room. Adrian looked as if he had just been given news he'd waited years to hear and feared all the same. Finally, he spoke. "That photograph has been here for over 20 years, and the woman in it, she was the love of my life." Lily's heart pounded in her chest. She tried to make sense of his words, but the pieces didn't fit. Her mother had never mentioned a man named Adrian Hart. "How do you know her?" she asked, her voice unsteady. Adrian's gaze didn't waver from the photograph. I met Marisol when we were young. She was everything. Then one day she was gone. No explanation, no goodbye. I've searched for her ever since. Lily's throat tightened. She wanted to ask 100 questions, but something in his voice stopped her. It carried a weight that felt too heavy for the moment. He finally handed her the signed receipt, but the delivery no longer mattered. The ride back down to the harbor was a blur. The ocean wind whipped against her face, but her thoughts were louder. Why was her mother's photograph on a millionaire's wall? Why had she never heard this name before? And why did Adrian Hart look at her as if she was part of a story he had been waiting decades to finish? Lily didn't have the answers, but she knew one thing. Her life had just changed, and the truth was waiting for her somewhere between her mother's silence and the photograph above that marble fireplace. The next morning, Lily woke up with the photograph still fixed in her mind. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her mother's younger face smiling from that golden frame in Adrian Hart's mansion. The image came with 1,000 unanswered questions. She tried to start her day as usual, coffee, quick breakfast, and her courier route, but the pull of curiosity was too strong. By mid-morning, she was standing outside the same tall iron gate. She hadn't planned it, yet here she was. Adrian answered the door with a look that suggested he'd been expecting her. He invited her in without hesitation, leading her back to the same room where the photograph hung. He didn't waste time. "Lily, I need to know everything you can tell me about Marisol Ramirez." She hesitated, unsure how much to share. "She's my mom. She lives here in town. She's been taking care of my dad, Ernesto. He's been in the hospital for a while now." The name Ernesto made Adrian's jaw tighten. "Ernesto Ramirez?" he asked slowly. "Yes. Do you know him?" Adrian sat down, his hands folded, his voice low. "Only by name." When Marisol left, it was sudden. One day she was here, making plans with me for our future. The next day, I got a letter, short, final. It said she couldn't see me again, and I shouldn't try to find her. No explanation. No goodbye in person, just ink on paper. Lily's eyes widened. Her mother had never spoken of this. "You're saying you were in love with her?" "More than that," Adrian replied, his eyes distant. "We were planning to build a life together. I thought I knew her heart. I thought nothing could take her away. But that letter," he shook his head, "it didn't sound like her. I always believed something or someone forced her to write it." Lily felt the truth pressing in on her, but it was tangled. "She never mentioned you, not once." Adrian leaned forward. "Lily, I think your mother was protecting someone. Maybe you, maybe your father. But I can't accept that she simply stopped caring. I've waited too long for answers." The intensity in his voice unsettled her. She stood, thanking him quickly, and left before the conversation could go any deeper. The ride to the hospital felt longer than usual. Inside Ernesto's room, the air smelled faintly of antiseptic and wilted flowers. Her father smiled weakly when she entered, but the moment she mentioned Adrian Hart's name, that smile vanished. "Why were you at his house?" Ernesto asked sharply. "I was delivering a package. I saw a photo of Mom. He said she was the love of his life before you." Ernesto's fingers tightened around the blanket. "Lily, listen to me. There are things in the past that should stay buried. Old ghosts have nothing to give you but pain." She frowned. "But this is about Mom. Don't I have a right to know?" His eyes softened, but his tone stayed firm. "Sometimes the truth isn't worth the cost. Promise me you won't go digging." She didn't promise. Instead, she kissed his forehead and stepped out into the corridor. Her heart was pounding, her mind buzzing with suspicion. On her way home, she stopped at the small apartment she shared with her mother. Marisol was in the kitchen, stirring soup on the stove. "Mom," Lily began, trying to keep her voice steady, "why is your photo in Adrian Hart's house?" The spoon slipped from Marisol's hand and clattered against the pot. She turned slowly, her eyes wide, her face pale. "You've been to Adrian's?" "Yes, he told me you left him without explanation, that you loved each other. Is it true?" Marisol's shoulders sagged, as if the weight of years had finally pressed too hard. She motioned for Lily to sit at the table. "It's true." Marisol said quietly, "We were in love. But his family, they were powerful. They didn't want him with me. I was from the wrong side of town. They threatened my family. They promised to make life impossible for your grandparents. And when I refused to leave, they threatened to take something far more precious, my unborn child." Lily's chest tightened. "You mean me?" Marisol nodded, tears in her eyes. "I left because it was the only way to keep you safe. I wrote the letter because they demanded it. I thought if I disappeared from his life completely, you would grow up free from their reach." Lily's mind swirled with emotions, anger at the cruelty of it, sadness for the years lost, and a faint spark of understanding for her mother's choice. "Does Dad know?" she asked. Marisol hesitated. "Ernesto knows I had a past before him, but he also knows the truth could destroy more than it heals." Lily realized the secrets were heavier than she imagined, but she also knew one thing. She couldn't ignore the truth any longer. Somewhere between Adrian's longing and Marisol's fear was the full story, and she was going to find it. The hospital corridors were quiet in the late evening. Fluorescent lights hummed faintly above, and the air felt heavy with the smell of disinfectant. Lily walked slowly toward her father's room, the weight of her mother's confession pressing down on her chest. When she stepped inside, Ernesto was asleep, his breathing slow and steady. Marisol sat in the chair beside his bed, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She looked up when she heard Lily enter, her eyes red as if the tears had only just dried. "We need to talk," Lily said softly. Marisol nodded, gesturing for her to sit in the chair opposite her. There was no anger in her face now, only exhaustion, the kind that came from years of holding on to something too heavy to carry. "I told you part of the truth earlier," Marisol began, her voice steady but low, "but you deserve to hear the rest." Lily leaned forward, listening. "When I met Adrian, I was working in a small art gallery. He came in one rainy afternoon, looking for shelter from the storm. We started talking and something between us just fit. We were from different worlds, but we didn't care. We made plans. We dreamed about leaving Pine Harbor together." Marisol's gaze drifted to the hospital window, as if she could see the memory playing out. "But his parents had other ideas," she conned. "They came to me one night. They told me I wasn't good enough for their son. They didn't want his name tied to a girl from the fishing quarter. At first, I refused to listen. Love was enough, or so I thought. Then they changed their tone. They said they would ruin my family's business. They would take my parents home. And then they said something that broke me completely. They would take my child." Lily's throat tightened. "And you were pregnant with me." Marisol nodded, tears brimming again. "I was terrified. I didn't know what they were capable of, but I believed them. I agreed to leave Adrian's life without a word. They made me write the letter in front of them. And the next day, I was gone." Silence filled the room for a moment, broken only by the steady beeping of the heart monitor beside Ernesto's bed. "How did you meet Dad?" Lily asked quietly. Marisol gave a faint smile. "Ernesto was a friend of the family. He knew about my situation but never asked for details. He offered me a safe place to stay, and over time he became my partner. He raised you as his own. He has loved you every day since." Lily's eyes burned. The truth was both painful and strange, part betrayal, part sacrifice. She had grown up believing in one version of her family's history, and now it had been rewritten in a single conversation. "Does Adrian know I exist?" she asked. Marisol shook her head. No, that was the one condition they made me swear to keep. But now that he's seen you, I think he suspects. Lily sat back, her mind spinning. You know he wants to meet with you. I think he's been waiting for this chance for decades. Marisol's expression softened, but her eyes were heavy with worry. Then maybe it's time. I don't know how much longer I have, Lily. The doctors have been honest with me. I want to make peace with my past before it's too late. Lily's stomach nodded. Mom, what are you saying? Marisol reached across the space between them and took her daughter's hand. I'm sick, Lily. The cancer has spread. The treatments aren't working anymore. The words hit like a sudden drop in temperature. Lily felt her eyes sting. Her breath caught in her chest. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I didn't want to take away your hope, Marisol whispered. But now, you need to know. And you need to know your real father before I'm gone. Lily couldn't speak for a moment. She stared at her mother's face, trying to memorize every line, every shadow. Finally, she said, then let's do it. Let's bring him here. The decision was made in that quiet hospital room, surrounded by the hum of machines and the weight of unspoken years. Later that night, Lily called Adrian. She told him Marisol was ready to see him. His voice was calm, but she could hear something breaking inside it. Tomorrow, he said. I'll be there. As Lily hung up the phone, she sat by her mother's side, holding her hand in the dim light. There was fear in her heart, but there was also a strange, fragile hope. Hope that the meeting would bring peace, that the years lost could be bridged, even if only in the time they had left. Morning sunlight filtered through the hospital blinds when Adrian arrived. He wore a dark suit, not for business, but for the weight of the moment. Lily met him in the hallway, her heart pounding as she led him to her mother's room. Inside, Marisol sat propped up in bed, her hair pulled back, her eyes tired but warm. When Adrian stepped through the door, she froze for just a second. Then a faint smile touched her lips. Hello, Adrian, she said softly. He stopped at the foot of the bed, his eyes locked on hers. Marisol, it's been over 20 years. Too long, she replied. Lily stepped aside, giving them space. The air in the room felt different now, thick with memories, regrets, and something like relief. I owe you the truth, Marisol began. I never stopped caring for you. I left because I had to. Your family threatened mine. They told me they would take my child if I stayed. I believed them. I believed they would destroy everything we had. Adrian's jaw tightened, but his voice was calm. I always knew it wasn't your choice. I searched for you for years, Marisol. I would have fought for you, for both of you. Tears glistened in Marisol's eyes. I couldn't take that risk. I had to protect Lily. His gaze shifted to Lily, and for the first time, there was no uncertainty, only recognition. I should have known the moment I saw her. She has your eyes. Lily felt a lump in her throat. I'm here now. That's what matters. They talked for hours about the past, about what might have been, and about the time they still had. There was laughter between the tears, and moments of silence that said more than words. Over the next few weeks, Adrian became a constant presence. He brought flowers for Marisol, books for Ernesto, and quiet comfort for Lily. The walls between the three of them began to fall, but Marisol's health declined quickly. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in gold, she asked Lily and Adrian to promise for something. Don't waste the rest of your lives on what we lost, she whispered. Build something new. Help others the way I wish I could have. 2 days later, Marisol passed away peacefully, with Lily holding her hand and Adrian sitting quietly at her side. The loss was sharp and deep, but it carried the strange softness of knowing that some wounds had been healed before the end. In the months that followed, Lily and Adrian worked together to create the Marisol Ramirez Foundation. Its mission was simple: to help single parents and families in crisis, offering them resources, safety, and hope. They turned Adrian's business connections and Lily's tireless energy into something living, something that grew from Marisol's memory. The foundation quickly became a cornerstone of Pine Harbor. Volunteers joined, donations poured in, and families who had been on the edge found a lifeline. For Lily, it was more than work. It was a way to keep her mother's spirit alive. Life kept moving forward. Seasons changed, and so did Lily. She found herself smiling more, speaking with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced loss and learned to turn it into purpose. Daniel, a local teacher she had met through the foundation, became a steady part of her life. His kindness matched her determination, and together they planned a future. On the morning of their wedding, the air was cool and clear. Lily, dressed in a simple gown, holding a bouquet of white roses and lilies. Before heading to the ceremony, she stopped at the cemetery with Adrian. They stood before Marisol's grave, the stone etched with her name and a short phrase, "Beloved mother and friend." Lily knelt, placing the flowers gently against the headstone. "I'm getting married today, Mom," she said softly, "and I'm carrying you with me." Adrian stood beside her, his voice low but steady. "We can't change the start of our story," he said, "but we get to write the rest." They walked away together, the path ahead still uncertain, but no longer weighed down by silence. That day, as Lily stood at the altar with Daniel and saw Adrian in the front row, she knew she was standing on the kind of ground her mother had dreamed for her, solid, safe, and ready for whatever came next. The past had left its scars, but from those scars, new roots had grown, and from those roots came a future built not from what was lost, but from everything they had found.